Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Wednesday, December 4th, 2024. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. That's the mantra. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube in the live chat. I see everybody's here and gathering. People are jumping on. Ronnie, our wonderful moderator, is here. She's been on and off lately because she is moving. I can say that much, and that's exciting. So thank you, Ronnie, for your fantastic work. Of course, Christine is here with us, my wonderful wife. The wise thumbs in the wise chat and in the live chat. It's a wise chat. It actually is a wise chat. I love that. So just a quick announcement. We're going to talk. I think this, I wanted to talk about this 100 times before, and every time I didn't. And so today I'll share some important things, but not all of them. And I'll say why. But later on, we'll do a Q&A here. So if you have any questions that you wanted to ask, we'll add a little bit of Q&A time at the end of this of the show. Okay. So, the world is moving quite, in lockstep in a certain direction, and we talk about this a lot. And we talk about where AI is moving, how it is taking over. We talk about the financial system, how that's evolving. We talk about the social credit score and all of those things that are moving in. And I'm not going to tell you they're not. I'm not going to tell you that everything's going to get better in the world itself. No. But I would sort of only give half of the picture if I didn't also share about a group of people that might, and in my perception, they will start revealing themselves probably within the next years. I would say by the end of the decade, we're going to see more and more and more of that. Now, this group will shock the world. And I'll explain a little bit why. So in the mainstream sector, very, very soon, I predict we're going to see the first humans that are going to openly talk about how they've been infused with AI and what they can do beyond the medical sector. So beyond any, prosthetics or any other sort of help that people could get because of any disabilities or injuries. I think very soon we're going to see the first humans that are going to be presented to the world has basically hybrids and supercomputers, and they're going to be able to, without any visible machines that they're using. And by the way, my love, your flashlight's on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Without any visible, no worries, without any visible machines that they're using, they will be able to do things that others, normal non-AI humans, will deem to be superhuman. And very soon, the progression of AI is going to create some foreseeable problems, but most people don't see them coming. And I need to tell you this part before I talk about the group. So what I see is going to happen is that people will very soon feel like they are out competed by AI and they can't compete with it. Now that is true for a lot of jobs, but that is also true for maybe, for a while in the arts. It might be true for entertainment, and even in culture, as there is this, this is like a revolution. And the world and the mainstream societies, even though they did not want this level of technology before, are so mesmerized by what AI can do, that they're sort of hypnotized by it, and how easier their chores are becoming, or how easier certain things are becoming for them. So they don't see a disadvantage in fully embracing it, right? Now, that disadvantage will appear very soon, like it always does. Big changes never happen by leading with the draconian stuff first. You give people something, just like people were given free email addresses, and they were given internet, and they were given all these things. And then once they're in, you start restricting stuff and changing stuff, and putting the thumb. And so that's going to happen. But another thing that's more important is, uh, humans are going to have a huge identity crisis, because the AI will do some tasks so fast and so comprehensive and seemingly so much better that a lot of humans will feel useless, worthless, within mainstream society, and that's already happening, right? A lot of industries are disrupted in such massive ways, and for a while, company owners and employers are keeping their staff, and they already know that the replacement is happening, but they're humans, and they don't want to push them out, but that's what's going to happen. That momentum could only be stopped if we were to stop AI right now in its tracks, and stop using it, and stop developing it, and stop training it, right? So that's that equation. And the only thing that I can say to that, and I have been saying, is you will not be able to win the competition with AI if you look at it from an isolated standpoint. So however good you are at your job, if it has anything to do with data analytics, office management, all of those things, AI will do faster, and in a in a shorter period of time, and more tasks, simply because it is like 1,000 or 1,000,000 use, right? So you can do a task, but there's now the millionfold power within that AI that can do it that much faster. So there's one direction, of course, is fighting it. And currently, I don't see enough momentum for that fight, right? Because people don't can't really see the dangers yet. They will, but they can't right now. So there's no willingness to fight it. Competing with it will be very problematic, like I just said. But the third option is what very few people consider. And that's where it gets really interesting. There are already groups of people who can see this, but not just this development, who can see where the world has been going. And they have been focusing on reconnecting and expanding on innate abilities that we have, but that have been dormant within us. Now, almost everybody, for example, who has practiced meditation for a significant amount of time, for a significant period of time, uh, starts to feel abilities, capabilities, and skills emerge that they didn't even know they had. They're more sensitive, they're more intuitive. They start to be able to pick up on thoughts, almost like mind reading. They can communicate over longer distances with people, and it's more and more accurate. So all those things are coming. Their physical abilities are usually improving. People that do breath work experience all kinds of expansion in their health, in their ability, in their endurance, in their strength. So there's a lot of those things already happening. But um I I predict that within the next 5 years, we're going to see a fairly coherent group that will emerge seemingly as a counter movement to the technology and the AI, but it's not true. They will just emerge at the right time, but it's not really a counter movement. Now, those groups have always existed. And there is one aspect that is, you could call indigenous. So, groups and cultures who have never lost some of the connections that we have lost in the modernized world, and that have not stopped teaching the new generations and expanding on that. Now, they are usually very remote. They don't talk about this. They don't share this. And officially, their representatives will officially usually only talk about what has been lost, and that's on purpose. So there's that element, and that element is all over the world. These groups exist, and they're sort of like sleeper cells, in a positive sense. They're waiting for the right moment and the right time, and when that moment comes, they will emerge. And they will seem like they will actually seem like the aliens to people. They will almost seem like like super natural beings, because they will be able to do things that you would call miraculous or magical or mystical, but they really are not. It's just things that we have forgotten, right? It's like almost like if you were to go to a 16-year-old and do some multiplications in your head in front of them, their brain gets fried. It's like, you're superhuman. I can't do it without my phone. Um, so we're going to see that. But then there's another element that's non-indigenous, in the way that the other groups of people are not necessarily what we might call tribal people or indigenous people. They're part of the modernized world. They look just like you and I, but they have dedicated a significant amount of their time on developing these and redeveloping and remembering these skills. And while there is no official organizational structure, there is a communication going on between all of these groups. And there is also sort of a command structure, although not in the traditional sense. But there is a level of communication and a level of coherence that I do not wish to explain, and I honestly can't really. I shouldn't. But it is happening. And so, aside from all the other developments, and aside from the fake alien stuff and some of the real other dimensional stuff, aside from technological advancements and AI advancements that are going to explode in the near future, aside from a complete restructuring of governments and financial systems, now that's going to be huge disruptions, and already are. I predict that when that group actually appears more coherently, that is going to be the greatest of all disruptions. Whether mainstream society and the more programmed human family can accept what they will see is a different story. But the true split in the timelines, as we have been talking about this for so long, that will mark the true split, because it will give to um, a lot of seekers and a lot of people who are questioning what's going on in the world, it will give them a template. It will give them a role model. And I don't like the word role model, but almost all of us need something or someone to model ourselves after. We need sort of, we need to see it. Some people have the ability to go on that inner guidance alone. That's great, but a lot of people just need to see something first to be able to believe that they can achieve that too. So they're also going to, and by they, that might include some of you, by the way, I fully anticipate that. This group will also um, show mainstream society, okay, so you're celebrating AI, you think this is the greatest thing ever, you think this is your solution, but let us show you. We've lived like this, and they'll show people how they've lived, and they'll show them what they're capable of. And I think a significant portion of the human family will rethink and reevaluate their decisions when it comes to full-on technocracy and technology and all of that. Now, I might be wrong, and it will not happen in the next 5 years. It might take longer, but something tells me as we're moving towards this crescendo of 2030, another possibility is that, if there is whether it's a man-made or whether it's a geophysical event, I know the numbers sort of, there's discrepancies. There's people who say 2030, people who say 2040, and then there's a 2046 year. But be that as it may, these groups or this group will emerge as probably the strongest surprise force in a long time. I can feel that, and most of this data is very intuitive, by the way. But I feel there is a momentum coming, and they won't be a conquering force, by the way. They won't be like a violent force. They will have a different kind of power that will be attractive to people. I do believe that if most humans today, if they were confronted with the options, if they could see in front of them two distinct choices. One is this AI. So you're being changed with external technology. You're being infused with nanotechnology. You're being steered through the AI. Now you can still do some super cool things, right? And fast and better and whatever better than before. And if right next to that choice is sort of the organic version that says, well, here's what we humans are really capable of in terms of our healing, in terms of longevity and longevity, in terms of our capabilities of the brain, co-creative powers, manifestation powers, levitation and telepathy and all those things. I think that most humans would intuitively choose the organic version. And a lot of you are, and a lot of people are when they're confronted. A lot of people get really inspired by others who already have some of those capabilities again, whether that is someone like in a past century, the Paramahansa Yogananda, who was teaching people certain things, whether it is one of today's great teachers, the Iceman, Wim Hof. He's become a big sort of a big figure, very well known. And a lot of people gravitate towards that path because it is within their control, because it is independent of technologies, power, internet, uh, and because they are in full responsibility again. And so that when it becomes possible in people's minds, then it becomes attractive. So what I'm saying is that these people exist, and it's not only a few, they're all over the world, and there is a invisible connection that connects all of those people. And that invisible connection, that invisible field, is bringing them more and more together, and that has been happening. So these people are brought together in different places at different times to recognize each other. That's all that needs to happen. They just need to recognize each other as being part of that same group. And those of you who pay and actually put in the work and are willing to go, and do the work that is needed, whether that's the healing work, whether that's the introspection work, prayer, meditation work, the raising of consciousness work. When that work reaches a certain level, those of you join that field, that invisible field. And so then you're being guided to certain places at certain times to meet certain people, and a coherence begins to happen. So you're not excluded. There is no birthright to this. There is a choice whether you step into this process, which also means becoming the best possible version of yourself, which also means shedding old limiting belief systems, habits, actions, getting to know yourself really well, and expanding on that work. When you do that, you join the field. When you join the field, you will know it, you will feel it. When you meet someone else who's connected to that invisible field, you will feel it too. Um, if anything is worthwhile, that's it. And how good and how grand this can get over the next years, it really depends on us. There is no external one factor that will make anything happen. There's not a light switch that will be flipped. There's not a overnight event that will simply fix things. We are, and my goodness, has this been overused? We are the ones we have been waiting for. And it's an invitation for you to join that group, but not simply by saying, I want to, but by letting your being and your actions, your intentions, and your real life raising of consciousness speak the language rather than you saying, I want to. Thank you for your contribution. You see, we're at a time where words mean uh, less. There's so many words are spoken, so they mean less. Like I've been saying, what somebody says does matter. What somebody does matter. Why they do it does matter. But what matters the most is who they are while they're doing it. Because that is the only real thing in this entire equation, is who they are. And so this is what this group of people already knows. They already know who they are. They have no doubt. They have no false, like this false self-pity, or they're not putting themselves down. They're not elevating. They're not putting themselves on a pedestal either. They just know who they are. So there's no sense of false smallness any longer. They don't try to fit in either. They're not trying to conform. Also not trying to provoke anyone. But they're focusing on their work 24/7. That's why they're here. Thank you, Drake. Really appreciate it. They're focusing on their work, and they're doing it 24/7. And some are visible already, and others are in the shadows, and both is necessary. But when this group will emerge, and it will emerge as a group, like, it will be clear. It will be very clear when that moment happens. It will mark a new chapter in the story of the human family. And it might be as controversial as another species, or sort of the opening up to interdimensional travels or whatever. I think that could be such a significant moment in our story. All right, let me know if you have any questions. It doesn't have to be this subject. There's general questions, whatever you want to ask. Like I said, we're going to do a little Q&A.
Whatever. They want to ask.
They can ask whatever they want. Doesn't mean I'll answer everything. I cannot tell you what to ask. I can only choose not to answer.
Okay, I'm waiting for the question.
Yeah, there will be coming. Thank you, Drake. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciated. You know what? I'm going to have a sip of coffee here. And chances are, as the questions are forming, chances are that you've met or seen some of these people already. Like I said, chances are some of you belong to this group already. Um, but it's going to be quite incredible. It already is, but when it hits the world stage, it's going to be quite incredible.
That's not a
Okay.
question, but I thought it's very nice.
Tamala Hughes, keep up this topic, please. Most are afraid of what's happening around us. Yes, Tamala, I will, and we will continue to share it. I'm going to give you something, just a quick explanation as to why we speak about the things we speak about. Over the last years, because of various psyops and various operations in the public arena, we've noticed a pattern more than ever before. When people talk about the victories, if you will, the positive stuff, of which there's always enough happening in the world, when that becomes the focal point, because of the still average level of consciousness within the human family today, the reaction becomes passivity. Oh, okay, so we're doing fine, everything's good. Really no necessity for me to do anything. And because in the world today, as the average level of consciousness stands, the greatest motivator and inspirator for positive change is still discomfort. Okay, it's not the vision of a better future that ignites that initial spark of change. It is the discomfort of the current situation. So people get so uncomfortable in their lives, whether that's financially, health wise, whatever. They get so uncomfortable that discomfort lights a fire underneath their asses, and they say, okay, I got to change something. And that discomfort then can, if they use it properly, turn into a positive vision and into positive change. Most humans still need that. They don't change until it's necessary. So when we present solely a positive, beautiful, loving picture of everything that's good that's happening, which wouldn't be accurate because there's a lot of shit happening, um, we oftentimes, whether we want it or not, support people in their passivity. And that's simply not what we want to do. And this comes from decades of one-on-one and group work experience. We have that. We've been working with people. Christine's been working with people for many, 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 many years. So this is not a theory. This is totally practical. So when you know what exactly motivators are for change in human behavior, perception, and whatnot, then you can work with that properly. So I just wanted to share that. Is David Icke only banned in Europe? So I know for a fact that he's banned in the Schengen area, in the EU Schengen area, which is almost every country. I know that some other countries follow uh, the EU Schengen area bans and then sort of implement them when somebody tries to enter their country. I do think he was denied entry into Australia, and unofficially, because of communications and whatnot, David assumes that he's banned from the majority of Western countries or Westernized countries, and probably some others too. So it's probably beyond Europe. Yeah. Uh, yes. Good question. Are you familiar with Sadhguru and his living spiritual communities? One in Tennessee. Yes. Very familiar. And we've talked about him before. We've shown some things that people do not want to want to see. But if you are in sync with, let's say, the vision of the World Economic Forum, if you are in sync with the UN Agenda 2030, if you are in sync with a Depop, when you want to reduce the population, if you are in sync with a worldwide program, then
It's your main.
he's your man. He's your guy. That's all the things that Sadhguru supports. In my research, in my perception, he's part of the team. He's part of the globalist, if you will, want to call that players. He's part of a dark team. That doesn't mean that there are not some true and good and positive teachings in what he shares. But like I said, what matters most to me is who someone is while they're speaking. So I don't trust him one bit. And the evidence supports, if you have a problem with Klaus Schwab, you should have a problem with Sadhguru, because they're close, they're buddies. Oh, next question. Sorry.
Yes, sorry. I thought you were done.
I was. No. Do you feel intuitively there's something to copper, that there is something greater to it than we know? Random, I know, my apologies. It's not random at all. There's this interesting theory out there, and I have to find more information on it. But the theory, and this is only the bits and pieces that I was able to pick up. The theory suggests that this old saying of blue bloods, right? The monarchies were blue bloods, or are blue bloods, um, that we supposedly were before we were carbon based. Now they want to do it silicon based, and before we were carbon based, that we were supposedly a copper based species, and that our blood was blue because of that. So this is the bits and pieces that I was able to pick up. There's very little information that I could find so far, but I did see this professor talk about it, and I want to go a little deeper into it. I've been looking for that information, so thank you for bringing it up again. A very, very interesting theory. Anyways, yeah. So there is, but to answer your question, there's a lot to copper.
But we use it in our garden
Yeah.
for the vegetables and for all the trees that we have, inside and outside. And I've just done a little experiment where I have the rods in one tree, and the others don't have the copper rods, and the ones with the rods grow way better, way better.
So you might remember that we did over a year ago, we did a show with Matt Roski from Cultivate Elevate, who turned us on to these bamboo sticks where you put a copper wire, you wrap it around the bamboo stick, and then you let the copper wire spiral up a little bit above the bamboo stick and a little bit below, and then you stick it into the soil in your garden next to a tree, whatever. And Christine has for the last year used copper wires or copper rods for all our garden beds, and
Many people are saying electroculture.
so electroculture. Yeah, I was just going to say it.
Cups, pictures.
So there is a lot to copper, as I think it's more of a harnessing of the atmospheric, of the ether energy, and I think it does greatly help to revitalize the soil. So we've had probably in our yield today was this year was the best garden yield that I can remember. So that's a combination of course, experience, cultivating seeds over the years, and just getting better and better at that. But then there's the electroculture, so the copper wires, and then there's FLFE. And so I would say probably between those things that our yield has probably doubled.
Yeah, FLFE this year was like a game changer in my garden.
Yeah, FLFE was a huge game changer, electroculture. So I want to say intuitively doubled. And for example, with the tomato yield, probably even tripled from previous years. Yeah, thank you. Great questions, guys. What do you think about Bitcoin being controlled by the government? So, there's this entire strategy in the background that we're starting to unravel as to what the exact purpose of the strategic purchase of Bitcoin by the government that Trump announced, right? Where Trump announced many things around crypto in the last 6 months. He said at a conference in Nashville, they want to turn the United States into the crypto capital of the world. Then, he announced that they were going to do those strategic crypto reserve buy things. So I mean, what that's going to do is, of course, up the price greatly. So I think we're just under 100,000 per Bitcoin now, and I think there's at least a 10x when the government comes in. There will be at least a 10x because they will buy up, a good section, and then 15x. Let me put it this way: in my experience, whenever the government gets involved, things get worse, not better. So, that's just. But here's the general outlook on what I see in crypto and blockchain and these technologies is that in no way, shape, or form, under any circumstances, will the current system of government seize control over currency or decentralize that control. There is not a snowball's chance in hell, and everybody who believes that, I have some oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you. That's not going to happen. There might be some alternatives, smaller alternatives, but even the XRP system that is poised to replace Swift is a highly centralized system compared to other solutions that would be way more decentralized. So I just don't see how people could believe that we're going completely digital, right? And that's what crypto is anyway. So whether that's a central bank digital currency, a Fed dollar, or something similar, or whether that's another, I just don't see how people can believe two things can be true at the same time. Something is digital, it means somebody always has a way of controlling it in some way, shape, or form. And people say that with blockchain, that is sort of different. But here's the thing: whenever there was anything created that was quote unquote, you know, impenetrable, there's always a backdoor. The backdoor might not be seen to us, but the backdoor is always built in. Governments do never ever give up control over anything, and especially not voluntarily. So, if that might not be a preferred answer, but as an investment, I think Bitcoin will only go up, as a sole investment strategy, and it will become interesting. How much longer people will be able to to convert their Bitcoin into US dollars, and how much worth that dollar will have. I know there was some posturing over the last week about the BRICS currencies and Trump and the dollar, but the dollar is dead. It has been dead. It's been on life support, 36 trillion in debt. It's a enslavement instrument issued by private bankers against interest, and has caused some of the greatest suffering in human history. So the day that the dollar dies will be a celebration, even though it will probably cause a period of chaos and whatnot. But it's probably the worst system that was ever invented. Is there a secret code word or handshake for those in a new organic superhuman group? There is a secret energetic handshake. You're so correct. There's no code. There's no Illuminati, stretch out your finger, Freemason handshake, these and this and this. And, no, this is way better. This is an energetic code, recognizing the energetic imprint of another that is like you, right? That vibrates at a similar frequency. So all you have to do is to be at that level of consciousness, and be honest with yourself, work on yourself. I mean, that's always been the case. Release all the bullshit that you've been taught that doesn't serve you, and you will recognize people that are like that. You'll feel their energetic imprint, even if you don't shake hands. So none of that is necessary. And this is the true decentralized organizational structure. Okay. So if we've ever waited for a decentralized structure, this is it. It's only communicated in the field, and it is so beautifully done that opposition doesn't even have a chance to interfere significantly. Are you talking about the elite bloodline that is controlling everything and waiting for the soul harvest? You might have just come on, but I explained at, towards the beginning of the show what I was and who I was talking about. No, this has nothing to do with a bloodline. It's not one particular family. It's not one particular defined ethnic group, religious group, spiritual group. There is no outer uh, sort of identifier that connects this group of people. They have seemingly nothing in common. They're all over the world and they're part of different cultures and tribes and nationalities and languages and all that. But their energetic imprint, their consciousness imprint is that's well, I'm going to leave it at that, is similar. I can't say more. What's for dinner? That's the question I get. I love that, Amy. Amy Boyd. We got to hug Amy and her husband. They came to see us. I played a show, a songwriter show down in Florida, and they came to see us, Amy and her husband, and we hugged and we talked and we had a beautiful time together. And I so cherish that, Amy. You know what's for dinner? We're having a little bit of a family reunion here that's starting today and it's going to go through the holidays. So we're going to gather today, break bread that Christine baked, and share a beautiful meal together. Okie dokie. Enlighten me. Can you explain this charade about Trump? How many are there? What and who to trust? Thank you for all your work for humanity. Well, you see, trust is such a, I trust very few people. And here's why. Not because I think people are bad, but most people don't know who they are. Most people don't know themselves who they are. They don't know how they react, how they will react in certain situations. They haven't discovered their shadows. They haven't looked deep enough into their own soul. So that to me means they don't know themselves. Why would I trust someone that doesn't know themselves, right? So that's just as a general theme. When it comes to the Trump phenomenon, I've said more than enough. I am highly appreciative for his presence in the world for one reason, that his presence was like one of the most massive disruptions in a otherwise streamlined information system. So with the appearance of Trump, things began to change significantly and more people than ever before started paying attention. That is why I'm thankful for this guy's presence. Beyond that, I've said everything there is to say. Trust yourself, believe in yourself, know yourself, improve yourself, become the best possible version of who you could possibly be. And then you won't lose any sleep over what they do or what they don't do, which you don't have any control over anyways. And assume that there's one big club and you're not in it. Just assume, because that's been historically the truth. So this club is still there. The same players are still there. There are going to be some things that are going to seduce people over the next weeks and months. Some things are going to get so much better, so fast. And all you have to do is not let your guard down. Appreciate if there's anything better, sure. But note that if they get rid of the IRS or the income taxes, of course that's a great thing, by all means. But like I said before, something is never just given by government as a system. That just isn't true. So don't let your guard down. Focus on yourself more and give yourself permission to see things for what they are rather than for what you want them to be. Why does your dog react to some topics? You know what? I'll ask him later. He's quite wise. He's 14 and a half years old. He's been around for a very long time. So he probably has some very smart things to say. He might just be hungry. I mean, that could also be a possibility, you know, but we'll get into that. Is the situation in France with the government in chaos and potentially the UK government, do you think it will coincide worldwide? Well, I don't, I'm not an expert on French politics. I mean, I follow it enough, but there's a pattern emerging. I want you to look at the average lifespan of administrations and governments, especially in Europe, because the way that they're comprised, in America, we have elections like clockwork. But in Europe, that's different. I mean, there is an election schedule, but it hasn't really been upheld in a while in most countries. There's either early elections, emergency elections, or new governments are being put in place, or people are resigning, and then unelected people are stepping up. So that has become such a normal thing, and it's for various reasons, right? It is also showing that this system won't be able to live much longer. There used to be, up even through the 90s, early 2000s, a system of relative stability. So a government would be in place for long enough, and there would be stable times where not a lot of things happened. Something always happened, but not a lot. And there was a inherent trust relationship by the majority of the people with the government, like enough trust. That has eroded so far that you need to replace those faces and the names so much quicker, right? So they just put new gophers in place and new puppets in place, and they just recycle them much faster. But if you think this to the end, right? If you think this through, you can't. I mean, what are you going to do? At the end, you're going to end up with a month, a government that works for a month. None of the structures are designed to work that way. So basically, what they're doing is they are killing the current system and form of government, and they are telling the people there's not a human being you can trust. That's what that's the symbolism. That's what they're showing is forget it. Humans are bad, and everybody will cheat you and deceive you. So we're going to restructure this, and we're going to let AI really be much more in control, and humans sort of just as a little bit of a guidance system. Of course, what they didn't tell you is that they're only putting the dumbest and the bottom feeders in those positions, and that they are giving the false perception that all humans are bad, dumb, and it's not true. But that's what they're showing, because we're seeing a worldwide restructuring of government. The old democratic government structures are dying, they're killing them, and they're replacing them with full-on technocratic structures where AI is at the center, and experts and soon unelected experts will take over certain fields of government. That's worldwide, the same thing happening in most places. This is Debbie, yeah. What do you think about all the talk from Trump about Canada becoming the 51st state if Trudeau does not close the open border? Well, I wouldn't take that seriously, honestly. You know, talk, you also have to see we're between the election and the inauguration. And so you have to, from their perspective, you have to fill up the airwaves with a lot of things that don't really matter, like that, right? That conversation. It's not serious. Just doesn't matter. Won't go anywhere. But it keeps people's attention spans, occupied, and it keeps them focused on such a conversation. Or, did he really suss him out, or did he really whatever? It's not going to matter. That's nothing that really matters. But it's gonna keep the media sphere talking for a week, and that's exactly the goal. Just to get to that inauguration date and fill up the space in between. Melissa, that's a great question. Thank you for it. And everything that I wanted to say about it and that needed to be said about that, I have already said before. So thank you for that. But that's where we're going to keep it at. Kristen, or is it Christine, like my wife? You just dropped the E. Kristen, do you believe in soul contracts? Yes, of course. I don't think there's something to believe in, but I do not believe that you cannot dissolve a contract, right? Or an agreement. So, like I've said before, this is sort of connected to the reincarnation cycle, the samsara, the karma wheel, which we're sort of in an evolutionary step, because we're discovering, for those who've been we're discovering that there is truly a choice to exit it. Now that choice requires certain things, but I don't think that as infinite consciousness, which we ultimately are, we can be bound to anything beyond or despite our free will. I just don't think that's possible. So some of these contracts might feel positive, but in my perception, I love to base everything on free will. Everything. So, that's my perspective on it. Mary Ann Cecile Mo. There's some really cool names here. Greetings from Norway. Well, greetings to beautiful Norway. I was there once for a few days, Kristiansund, and it was just spectacular. Thank you so much for your wonderful work for humanity. Thank you. Have you ever considered doing live meditations? I love your beautiful energy. It's so uplifting. I've answered this question many times before, but I'll do it again because a lot of people are asking. The reason, so Christine and I facilitated many group meditations in person with a group of people that have had amazing results, like amazing individual and collective. At one point, we were able to raise the consciousness of the space that we were meditating in to numbers I've never seen before. This is how beautiful this coherent experience was. We have done one guided online group meditation, and this is going to get a little deep into the mechanics of it, but when you do a group meditation, the entire purpose is to go into the field of creation. Now, most people are, unfortunately, they don't know that field is always being watched, not just by good entities, and that watchers are waiting for such a coherent group energy that is so strong. They're waiting for that to happen, and then they interfere with it. So they steer that energy in the direction that they wish. And because most humans don't know about this, they don't know that a lot of times these group meditations are sort of being hijacked. We've seen this and experienced this more times than I can count. And so we are only doing online group meditations if we can have a set of conditions that are met. We have our own watchers. We have a specific field, a consciousness field that is prepared and created for that purpose. And it is within a limited scope. So we're in a place where people can't randomly join, but people can only pre-sign up and then join. So those conditions are sort of need to be met in our perception to do them. That's been the guidance for us. If it ever changes, we'll let you know. But for now, we're not doing any open group meditations. David Icke has been portraying Elon Musk as part of cabal promoting human merge with tech. Thoughts? David Icke is right. On Elon, I mean, most of the time, at least, it's really been hard to debunk David Icke. Like, maybe you can find some details that are not always spot on, but he's like one of the most forensic researchers that you could possibly come across. Incredibly intuitive and with a pure heart. So, it's a rare breed, but it does exist, and David Icke's one of them. So I concur 100% with what he says about Elon. Those are my thoughts. Evelyn Grace Calloway, what is your thoughts on Darius? Okay. So first off, we asked Darius on because a lot of you requested him. We weren't really aware of Darius, other than I've seen his face pop up, but I wasn't really aware. Then we watched a 4-part series, The Great Unknown, on Iconic, by Christiane van der Week, or Van Week, sorry. I always say Van der Week, but it's Van Week. and we had her on, and I thought that it was one of the best done docu series probably ever. 4 movies about death, transition, preparation, afterlife, what comes next, what are we in, what, all of those things. And she did an amazing job with this movie, and Darius was part of that movie, and he obviously offers a valuable perspective, in my opinion anyways, and something to consider. What is most important, I believe that he 100% believes what he says to be the truth. In my perception, and this is not contradictory, by the way, I don't think I'm contradicting him. There's something beyond that was not discussed in this interview that I perceive in a different way. But you can't put everything in one conversation. So I'm not trying to contradict anything that he said, because I believe that his experiences and his experiments with testing himself, I believe that. I believe he has legitimate out of body experiences, and I believe that what he experiences and what he shares are one and the same thing. Whether that is the entire story, I don't think so. But as I said, we had one conversation, and there's a lot more to discuss. But to put it in a nutshell, in my perception, what Darius was describing and talking about is part of the larger construct, right? And he doesn't say, and he says that. In my perception, that entire construct is not inherently, wasn't inherently created to serve us. So that's, that's probably the biggest where I see things differently from him. But that's kind of the only important new information maybe to share about Darius. Other than that, I haven't met him in person. Pardon me?
You talked about it yesterday also.
Yeah, I talked about it yesterday, and I've nothing else to add at this point. Thanks for the question. Do we have one more, or?
Yeah, that's a local question. Do you know how to answer that?
Ronnie, excuse my inexperience with locals and for asking this question here, but usually how do we connect with Inspired Tribe, and will the live broadcasting be streamed on locals as well? Okay, so just technically speaking, we're doing usually 5 shows a week on YouTube and Rumble and X. That's what you're watching right now. And locals is our subscriber community, inspired.locals.com. Where we do coffee and truth, we do honey talks where Christine and I talk, and sometimes just spontaneous things. It's more intimate. We answer a lot more questions. We go through the comments together. It's a community where people are interacting with each other and getting to know each other better. So the purpose is a little different, if that was your question. And we love our locals community. We love this community. It's just a little bit of a different feel to it.
I think that's the last question.
Last question. Okay.
I think.
Sat Yoga, what are your thoughts? I don't have any on that, really. So, I'd love to share if I had any, but I don't. If we have another last question, I don't want to end on, okay. So then, thank you, though. Appreciate it. And in closing, I will say this. If my answers to your question can add a different perspective or an additional layer of information, or just somehow add something, then wonderful. But please trust your process, your guidance, where your wisdom, your own inner wisdom is taking you. We're not really the answer givers, if you know what I mean, and we don't claim to be, and we don't want to be. Maybe we can add value and inspiration, then we're happy. And sometimes we get feedback that that's what happened in someone's life. That is wonderful. But we're not gurus or oracles or know it all. Actually, know very little. And sort of feels good to be on this awakening and exploration journey. So thank you for your trust. Thank you for your love. Thank you for being here with us. We love you, friends. We appreciate you. And we will be back with you again very, very soon.
Oh, are you doing a locals today? Raymond is asking.
We'll probably do a quick locals here in a little bit. Yes. And right now, you could be only a few clicks away from experiencing something amazing, something that has changed thousands of lives all over the world. I'm talking about a high consciousness field similar to those at pilgrimage sites and sacred places. It's where people go to heal, to connect, and to become the best possible version of themselves. With FLFE, you can bring such a high consciousness field into your home right now. It's a spiritual quantum technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Better sleep, more energy, greater well-being, improved finances, electrosmog mitigation. These are only some of the things people on the FLFE service are experiencing. Try it now for 15 days completely free of charge, no credit card needed. Just click on a link down below to start your free, no strings attached FLFE trial right now.